Hello, today we're going to be talking about the Incas.
That's right, we will be covering all of the main aspects of the Incan life right from birth to death.
Religion. Religion was one of the most important aspects of life in the Incan world.
They believed that their god, Viracocha, created them, the earth, stars and every animal. The god of the sun, Inti, was also a very important god. They thought that their emperor was the son of the sun. It was said that he was directly descended from the sun.
They would hold festivals for the god, like the Rami festival. This festival was to celebrate their creator and praise him. They would dress up in their best clothes and eat the finest foods, because this is one of the most significant days.
The Incas had many gods. They lived on heaven and some lived on earth. All of the gods determined their hierarchy.
Lifestyle.
The basic feudal system is like this. It started off with the emperor, it then went to the nobles, then to the commoners, and finally to the peasants. The emperor had to look after about 10 million people if it wasn't for the nobles. The emperor would split up governors to a quarter of the kingdom, and they would help to govern that section of land.
As their land space grew, the emperor had to get more governors to divide into sections of land. The Incas would wear sleeveless shirts and tunics. The women would wear long dresses, and their hairstyle would be very important to the way of their fashion. They would live in brick houses with thatched roofs. Most houses would only have one room and very little furniture.
The Incas would eat anything because there was very little food where they lived. They would eat duck, fish, peppers, tomatoes, corn, and beans.
Work.
The peasants worked the most out of everyone in the Incan Empire. This is mostly because of the feudal system. At the top of the feudal system was the emperor, or the sapa. Then came the Viracoi, then came the high priest, then came the governors of a quarter, then came the council of the realm, then came the inspectors, then came the military generals, and then came the other officials.
The Viracoi is normally the closest relative of the sapa. He would be the sapa's advisor. The high priest, also known as the Quilapu, also has lots of power. He probably had the most power after the sapa. He was also a very important religious leader.
The governors of a quarter would well govern a quarter of land. The council of the realm would also advise the sapa. The inspectors would make sure that no fights would break out in any parts of their empire. They also made sure that everyone would pay their taxes. The military generals would fight to build their empire. The head general was normally a close relative to the sapa as well. The other officials would just help run the empire.
Men, women and children. The Incas sacrificed some children to their gods. Before death, these children would have been drugged or drunk. 9-year-old girls knew how to spin thread, gather herbs and grow beer. Between the ages of 9 and 12, boys would learn how to trap birds whose skin was made into leather goods. The flesh was cooked and eaten, and their feathers ended up ornamenting shields and weapons.
Girls gathered flowers in the fields and used pigments in the petals to dye the turbans and other precious garments worn by the nobles. Teenage boys would mostly tend to herd llamas and alpacas up in the mountains, but they would also learn how to use lassos, traps, and slings to hunt and kill animals. Teenage girls were expected to be submissive and respectful, to cook and clean, to obey their elders' orders, and stay away from men until they were given one to marry.
The women were required to weave cloth for clothing. As I said before, the women started their trade at a young age. Government officials came round to the town looking for good-looking girls to sacrifice to the gods. The best-looking girls would be guarded and educated. However, only the best-looking would be the sacrifice. This was a very superstitious time where people believed that if they didn't give a sacrifice to the gods, the world would end.
Men in the Incan society were expected to serve in the army. If they didn't, they were considered weak. If the male was in a marriage, the man's wealth would be passed down to the boy, and the same for the woman. If the man wasn't part of the army, they would usually be a farmer. Males ruled very unfairly and also took most of the jobs.
In the end, the Inca Empire was successful until the Spanish conquest.
Modern civilizations have learned a lot from the Incas.